bevy for me because I'm just not strong enough. Oh, hey! Hi! It's me, Wilma Fingerdoo, with the Fingerdoo review of RuPaul's Drag Race España Season 1, Episode 5. And before we get started, I need to send a shout out to Carucci, I hope I'm saying that right, on Instagram for helping me try to understand some of the names and references on last week's episode. As a Canadian, I do find it hard to understand some of the nuances in culture and translation where Drag Race España is concerned, and it's people like Carucci who've made it easier for me. My apologies for not thanking you publicly last week, Carucci. Seriously. And here's to all of you who've helped me, especially with pronunciation. I don't have a bevy yet, but let's fix that now. Jorge, drink me! Ooh, look at this. What is this? It's a G&T cocktail? My goodness. I just want to thank Sean for sending me this huge martini glass. It's supposed to make my hands look fragile and delicate. This will make you look feel fragile and delicate, let me tell you what. And here's to Carucci and everyone who sent me any tips on pronunciation and cultural divide where Drag Race España is concerned. Seriously. Thank you, Jorge. Speaking of tasty bevies, I also want to send a shout out to the bartender at the Phoenix in New York City who served my YouTube friend Ed. Ed went up to the bar and said, "Jorge, drink me!" And the bartender replied, "Wilma Fingerdoo!" I made my whole week. Seriously. Okay, so let's get to it. We started this week off by saying goodbye to Arantxa Castilla-La Mancha, who was clearly going to be missed by the remaining queens. But still, as Sagitaria said, one less. She's a warm one, that Sagitaria. Everyone except Davima congratulated Ogatio for winning the lip sync. Davima not only thought Ogatio should be gone by now, she also came for her look. Carmen was impressed that Ogatio was showing her true face without all her signature makeup, while Davima hoped, well, she just didn't show it again. Ogatio, blessed, wasn't fazed. Why would she be? As far as she's concerned, Davima wasn't at her level, although whose level was more elevated really depended on whose yap was flapping. Davima! To change the subject, Poopy congratulated Killer Queen on her first win, although Davima had something to say about that too. She thought Poopy was the real winner. There was a part of me that suspected Poopy did too, and she wasn't alone. Carmen, always ready for a warm hug and a kind word, declared Poopy the real winner and Killer the sentimental winner. Killer was thrilled. Still, a win's a win. Here's to Killer. Seriously. The next day, as the queens entered the workroom, they were greeted by 3 huge half casks full of grapes. Well, immediately my mind went to I Love Lucy and the grape stomping episode. But then that happened in Italy. Kind of. But still, Spanish wine? Delish! But the queens didn't have to wonder what was up for long because there was Supreme, looking beautiful in blue. She's just going through all the pride flag colors, isn't she? Today's mini challenge had the queens stomping grapes in pairs, and the pairs that extracted the most juice would win. But what's a mini challenge without the Spanish pit crew? Grudge work, that's what. But what about when the pit crew boys are none other than the Perez twins? Well then, it's just plain distracting. Not that I'm complaining. No one was, apparently. The queens drew earrings to determine the pairs, which were Poopy and Carmen, Ogatio and Killer, and Davima and Sagitaria. Carmen was feeling pretty confident that Poopy's weight would secure them the win. Well, she wasn't wrong. Not only did they win, they won by a lot. But I put that down to the rest of the queens being out of shape and, in the case of Sagitaria and Davima, undernourished. Then Supreme started singing the theme song to Fetisa o Quimatia, the Spanish equivalent of the Canadian TV show Degrassi, or Beverly Hills 90210. Because they won the mini challenge, Poopy and Carmen got to choose the characters they wanted to play first. Poopy chose the principal of Slut Drag High, L'Olympia. Why wouldn't she? Probably because she's the oldest, I'm just saying. Well, she is. Carmen, determined to broaden her range with the judges, went for the dead student Marie Fair. There was a bit of drama between Davima and Sagitaria because they wanted the same role, the pretty girl. I'm shocked. Right away, the queens got down to rehearsing. Actually, what happened was Killer went off the deep end with her method acting and the others just stared in disbelief. Or, in Davima's case, went on her merry judgy way. It's hard to tell. Either way, she hoped Killer was ready to lip sync. Personally, I thought Killer looked like she was ready to kill somebody. Well, mostly Davima. Then it was off to shoot, basic or cynic, with Los Javis. Poopy went first and set the bar very high with her sexually amped principal, which could or could not be based on the original actress's portrayal of the part. To be honest, Poopy doesn't remember the show or the actress because, as she said, it's been 17 years or more since the show aired. Actually, it's only been 10, but still, if anyone would remember it, it should be Grandma Poopy! Either way, Poopy's performance consisted mostly of her rolling around on the desks and, while taking suggestive selfies. Los Javis loved it. Actually, I have to say, Los Javis did a great job directing everyone through this. I love the notes they gave, and so they should. Javier Calvo actually starred in the original series. Here's to Los Javis! Seriously. Carmen, Ogatio, and Sagitaria were next. I have to say, I was impressed by Carmen in this. That makeup was everything. To be honest, I really didn't pay much attention to the filming of this scene because the Perez twins were pulling focus. Lord knows I'd like them to pull a few things for me. I'm just saying. Not you. Poor Ogatio. Clearly this was an improv challenge, and clearly she sucked at it. Bless. People do one of two things when they're nervous. They talk too much, or they don't talk at all. Guess which route Chatterbox Cliente took. Yep, that's the one. I have to say, I was pleasantly surprised by Carmen as the ghost zombie. She swallowed that banana like a champ. Champ. Finally, we had team players, Davima and Killer Queen. I think Davima had the right attitude for a change. Killer was so over the top that it was actually funny that Davima practically ignored her. Thank goodness for the Perez twins playing with that ball is all I'm saying. And, of course, Carmen's big wide mouth. Who'd have thought you could make a bunch of bananas look dainty? Seriously. And then it was Elimination Day, and the queens celebrated by acting like they were jumping rope. Oddly enough, some of them had trouble doing that too. The queens took a moment to acknowledge that there were only 6 of them left and wondered who would win this week's challenge. Even though Killer thought this was going to be Poopy's week, Davima took another jab at Killer by saying Poopy'd been robbed before. In fact, Davima also brought up Ogatio's week 1 sewing challenge win and that she thought Carmen should have won that one. I think someone needs to remind Miss No Win Never Been in the Top that she's not a judge. Maybe if she spent less time judging others, she might win a challenge for herself. Of course, I hear they're making great advancements in pigs flying too. And then the room took a hateful turn. Ogatio called Davima a person. Not my words, hers. Davima said Ogatio was one as well. And then Poopy said that after how everyone did in the Maxi Challenge, that Ogatio should go home. Is this a translation thing, or is the pressure of winning $30,000 just too much for some of these queens? Seriously. I thought it was funny how Davima said when someone doesn't like her, she acts like a bitch. Well, that explains why she's been a bitch since day one. Seriously. As the queens got ready for the runway, Ogatio shared with Killer and Poopy that she hadn't realized she'd done such a bad job in the Maxi Challenge, but was clearly feeling that Davima's impersonation of a meth addict wasn't much better. That's what she was going for, right? I mean, why else would she be grinding her jaw? Go with your strengths is my motto. Over on the other side of the room, the supposedly disbanded Ugly Busters got ready. Carmen asked Davima what her problem was with Ogatio. From what I understood, Davima is just jealous. She doesn't see how unique Ogatio is. And because what she is isn't considered classically beautiful, Davima doesn't see her drag as valid or legitimate. And that makes her worthy of bold-faced hatred. I don't know. I don't speak Spanish. Thankfully, it was time to head to the runway, where Supreme was looking a little rough in what I can only assume was supposed to be a big pink cloud. In her defense, though, this is the first thing she's worn in or out of drag that I didn't like, so here's to Supreme. Anna and Los Haves were there as well, and joining the judges this week was singer, DJ, and TV personality Alaska. Category is Spanish Art Eleganza Extravaganza. Up first, the bitch herself, Davima Nurmi. I thought this was a beautiful look, but not very inventive. But then, Davima isn't there to make people think. So well done, Davima. Seriously. Ignorance is bliss. Or in her case, beautiful. I love Poopy's Las Meninas by Diego Velázquez. I thought she looked just like the painting. Well, if the girl had grown up in a brothel. Still, she was lovely. Killer Queen's interpretation of Salvador Dali's work was gorgeous. Ogatio's Ricardo Calvolo-inspired portrait of the creator of Don Quixote took my breath away. This was actual art brought to life and not just hanging off a pair of shoulders. I was disappointed in Sagitaria's runway after everyone else's. She looked beautiful, but boring. Just me? Carmen's Juan Miro look was a bit underwhelming too. Even when she started painting herself blue, I wasn't as impressed as the judges were. Maybe they were dying for something interesting to look at by that point. I don't know. We're not friends. And then it was time to watch Basic or Cynic. This whole thing was unwatchable for me, and not just because of the language barrier. The worst of the bad bunch were definitely Ogatio and Killer. Ogatio seemed to barrel through her scenes without giving anyone else a chance, while Killer didn't seem to care that anyone else was in her scenes at all. She was too big to let anyone else get a word in edgewise. My favorites, I hate to say it, were Carmen's Ghost Zombie with her banana fetish and Davima's tooth-grinding meth head. Probably because they both said the least. As for the judges, they seemed to love it. Or they were high, but that didn't stop them from giving their critiques. Davima was first, and not surprisingly, Los Haves loved working with her because they haven't spent a hot minute with her in the workroom. Anna loved her runway, and Alaska thought she was timeless and could see why she named herself after 50 supermodel Davima and goth queen Vampira. Poopy was another fave of the judges. Los Haves loved how she took their direction and multiplied it by 1,000. Anna wasn't a fan of Poopy's runway because it looked like a rental costume to her. Alaska completely disagreed. Los Haves weren't as complimentive where Killer was concerned. They were disappointed that Killer didn't have more levels in her performance, even after they suggested she vary it. Alaska didn't have the same problem with Killer's performance, saying more is more, and even praised her Dolly-inspired runway, while Anna wished Killer hadn't done such a literal interpretation of Dolly's work. Somehow I feel if Killer had made a looser interpretation of Dolly's work, Anna would have complained about that too. Just saying. Ogatio got the same kind of reaction from Los Haves. She did her own thing no matter how they directed her. Anna loved Ogatio's balance in her runway between the historical and contemporary themes, and Alaska couldn't have agreed more. As for Sagitaria, Los Haves thought she did the best in a situation made difficult with Ogatio's overacting, while Anna had to ask her what painting she was representing, which is never a good thing, let's be honest. Apparently, it was Dolly's Woman with Flower Head, but Anna thought it was too simple. Alaska, on the other hand, said the epitome of diplomacy by saying sometimes less is enough too. I like her, but she's wishy-washy. Last up was Carmen. Los Haves called her a scene stealer in the best way possible. Anna loved the concept of her dress by adding the Alexander McQueen paint robots element to it. Then, Supreme shocked everyone by asking the queens who should go home this week. I was surprised that everyone said Ogatio, if I'm honest. I'd have thought that at least one queen other than Ogatio would have said Killer, but I was wrong. And with that, the queens left the stage while the judges deliberated. As the queens digested what was said on the stage, Ogatio admitted that she felt badly that everyone picked her, but she felt betrayed by Sagitaria because of the help she felt she gave her with her character and their scene. You could tell Sagitaria felt badly because she couldn't give a logical answer as to why she picked Ogatio. If I were Sagitaria, I would have just been honest and said I was afraid if I didn't pick Ogatio, that Davima would be a bitch to me too. Seriously. Killer got emotional over the fact that it would most likely be her and Ogatio lip-syncing, but that she was honored because she'd admired Ogatio's work before she even got to Drag Race. Davima was just worried that the video they all watched today was going to haunt them for the rest of their careers, however short they may be. Back on the main stage, it was announced that this week's winner, finally, was Poopy. Here's the Poopy. It's about time, I'm just saying. And, as expected, the bottom two queens were Killer and Ogatio. I have to say, I was really impressed with Killer during this lip sync. She performed the hell out of that song in a way I didn't expect. She was so intense and focused. Not that Ogatio did a bad job, it's just that Killer did it better. So I, for one, was not surprised that when the music died, it was Ogatio that sashayed away. Well, what do you think? Did the right queen go home? Did Killer dodge a bullet? Between the two of them, Ogatio was the only one without a win, but was that enough of a factor to keep Killer? What about Poopy? Should Carmen be worried? Speaking of worried, who will Davima pick on now that Ogatio's gone? We're down to the final 5. Who will be next? All we can do is tune in to Drag Race España next week to see how it all plays out. And then, when you're done, you come on back and you see me so you and I can compare notes. Now, don't forget to like this video by giving it a thumbs up, and by that I mean clicking on the thumbs up icon and not just doing a thumbs up at the screen. It really does help my videos to get seen by more people if you do. Also, subscribing helps my channel as well, so if you're there clicking the like button, why not click that subscribe button too? And until next time, miss me! Mwah! Seriously, Jorge. Oh, big drag, I didn't even get through this drink. Here's to you, Jorge, seriously. I find it funny that Davima thinks that Ogatio's not as relevant as she is, but I'll tell you, I can't remember any of Davima's runways, and I remember all of Ogatio's. She's so interesting. Also, I don't see Davima as a drag queen. I see her as a drag model, which, again, is probably why I think a lot of what she does on the show is forgettable. Bless her. Well, plus she's a bitch, and I don't pay much attention to her anyway. She's going to probably start picking on Killer next. I think that of the group, she wouldn't pick on Carmen because she obviously wants to sleep with her. And for somebody who didn't have a good history with Sagitaria, because weren't they roommates that separated badly? They seem to be getting close too. But I think it's just because the three of them are cut from the same cloth in Davima's opinion. So Poopy's old, so she doesn't regard her at all. And then there's poor Killer, who's just Killer.